I remember when I first heard the words, "You're gonna be a father." A smile wanted to form on my lips, but was caught by the barriers in my heart that made it feel like I wasn't good enough. Handcuffed to past behaviors, chained to shame, I became a victim and a prisoner of regret, hiding the fact that me and my father were strangers. And when I first heard the words, "You're gonna be a father," a smile wanted to form on my lips, but the barriers in my soul made it feel like I wasn't equipped. Because of my upbringing that late at night had me up thinking if I could even raise another human being, because I had a hard time even seeing myself. And it didn't help that healthy images of fathers were very rarely seen. All I ever saw was cheaters or villains on my TV screen. Flip the channel, another man holding the handle of a gun. Flip the channel, another man cheats on his wife, leaves a son. Flip the channel, flip the page, a shot of black and brown locked in a cage. So no wonder the only emotion people think we ever tend to show is rage. Truth be told, there's a story very rarely told of fathers who have worked hard to heal behind the scars and break the barriers set up by the system, break the barriers set up by self-doubt, break barriers of past hurt to move forward, breaking barriers only to break out. And now, when I hear the words, "You're gonna be a father,"
my mom left the house in the middle of the night, leaving me and 6 of my siblings in the house. She left the house to go get my father because the lights were turned off, the gas was turned off, and every Friday he got paid, and every Friday he went to the gambling house and he gambled and he had fun and partied. So she went to go get him and left us in the house. At that time I was asleep, didn't know she was out trying to get my father. And I grabbed my little brother and we ran next door to the neighbors. This thing I know, we were all being put in the back of a van, heading to McLaren Hall. I was in a foster home in the 80s in South Central. And listen, I had to walk through 7 gang neighborhoods to get to school. And I tell you, I was fighting every day. Not because that was my thing, because I wanted to be a basketball player, but I had 3 foster brothers in there that were serious gangbangers. I'm guilty by association. I can't tell you how many times I had to run home being shot at, watched a lot of friends die, watched a lot of people die, held a lot of people in my arms while they were dying, walked out of my house and through the alleys and see people in the alley dead for 2 days. Coroner hadn't came and picked them up. I didn't think I was gonna live past 21, I'll tell you the truth.
My mother's the one that raised me and my older brother growing up. And then my mom met my stepdad and he was in and out of our lives. And, you know, he was from a gang and me and my older brother ended up from the same gang. We would, run the streets like, any young gang member would. And, we would look up to, the older homies. We would look up to my dad because he was in and out of prison. He would have always a lot of cash. So we would like, I want to be like that. He would always he would go to the store, fill up the basket, we would just fill it up, do whatever we want. And he was somebody we looked up to as far as like, not just us, but anybody that around him. When he walked in, everybody felt like, damn, this guy, he's a man. When he would walk in anywhere, to a house or to a party, everybody showed their attention to my stepdad. And that's what, me and my brother, I think, grew in us, like, we want to be the ones. So, and that's how we seen him. I entered the gang, my older brother was from there, my uncles were from there, my dad was from there. I thought I was a shit.
So when I was 12 years old, I would get away from the house, and the only time I had the chance to get away was during school hours. So I would take off to Melrose, get lost in the alleys, wait till the stores would open up, hoping that there would be an adult or someone that would stop me and ask me what's going on. I wanted like a role model. I wanted somebody like to just like be like, hey kid, what's up? Like, I needed to be saved like straight up. with that, just, in time, it became like an outlet to get away, but still return back to an abusive home.
The thing that my gang taught me was unity, but not within each other, unity within their families, because gangs do pertain to families, but it wasn't mine. I made it my life because I was seeking that love and compassion, going back to that. That's a void that I was trying to fill with a bunch of people that had the same void.
How many do you have right there already?
3. This is 4.
Count your eggs.
4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
How many are you gonna crack, Johnny? 6? When I found out I was gonna be a father, the first reaction or even thought that came in my head was that I'm fucked. I mean, that I wasn't gonna be able to take care of this kid. You know what I mean? I was a kid myself, and I was being a kid that was a rebel to society. Having my first son while I was in jail, and knowing that I have to live my life for him. I used to write poetry. I used to write narratives. I used to write letters to my son, even though if I didn't think he was gonna get them, I would always write it. And, that helped me inside. The first day I spent with my son, when I am released, is going to be a day that I've been waiting for a long time. And funny thing, everything that I've wrote in a couple of my letters, we've done already. And, I was able to accomplish that.
When I grew up in Compton, my image of a man was the Compton Crips, the pimps, and the drug dealers. My foster father was a chronic alcoholic, very, very abusive. I had got a phone call and said that I was going to be a dad. Oh, I wasn't ready. Still trying to ball. I'm still trying to play basketball. Dad.
First time I see my daughter was at her ultrasound. And when I heard the nurse go over her mother's stomach and I heard that profound sound of a heartbeat, I would cry. And I started crying the first time because I knew that that was me right there, living, breathing, and it's my little girl. Stop. The day my daughter was born was February 8th, 2009. I caught myself fighting with an individual that I did not know was armed at the time. As we were fighting, he shot me due to the fact of the circumstances. My daughter's mom went into labor and they had to have an emergency C-section. So I had lost my opportunity to be there at the birth of my daughter, but I didn't lose the opportunity to be in her life.
I believe what's gotten in my way of being a father, today and in the past, they're more worried about, what I did when I was 14, 13, 15 years old. And, judges believe that in a kid's best interest, is to be with his mom. And, I believe in the kid's best interest should be with both of us. Because that emotional bond with both of us is what really matters. We love our children, And just because a court or a piece of paper, our child support says we don't, it's not true.
When I had my son, I still wasn't a father because of the image that I grew up with being a father. And when I had him, it kind of changed my life a little bit in a sense where I had to sit down and take a look at what I was doing. So what my children have taught me along the journey was to be a great listener and be ever so present in their lives and be active in what they're doing. So I make it my business to try to find out how my son's day went, how my daughter's day went, how was school. Though my oldest son had a 4.3 grade point average and went to medical school, he had some challenges in school. And not just educational challenges, he liked to go out and have fun. And so I had to kind of drive to the Bay Area and do what I call check him a couple times. And what I mean by checking him is to look him eyeball to eyeball and say, get it together. took that really hard because he was my first son. That hurt me. That hurt me bad. That pain probably won't go away first year, second year, your third year, your 10 years, could be 20 years. And when I think about it, I processed it, but I still hurt.
I've heard this saying that mama's baby, daddy's maybe. And that's something that has to low-key kind of disintegrate in itself. The fact that the father always has to prove himself. But that doesn't apply to who that person really is, because if they really took the time to realize who this person were day in and day out, there's going to be things about them that aren't perfect, but that doesn't change the love for their child. That doesn't change who they want to be in that child's life. The only thing that got in my way of being a father at first was myself. I was the biggest obstacle to overcome. Kevin was the biggest obstacle to overcome. And once I was able to find strength in something other than myself, because myself wasn't really taking me anywhere.
Things I had to learn being a father is to love someone. If someone cried or if someone hurt themselves, instead of be like, hey, get up, stop being a crybaby. Or for me, it's more of like, Mio, I'm here, I love you. I learned to love my children by knowing that, this kid is mine. And then for him to, to hold on to my leg, it'll be like, oh, what are you doing? Like, okay. None of that hate, jealousy, anger, envy, it doesn't sit in me. It doesn't exist. My children are my world.
My little me, that's what I call her, my little mamas, my daughter. She has taught me a lot. She has taught me how to respect others, how to care for someone. I worry about, in all honesty, the way my community perceives me as a person, because I could go day to day now living in peace, but other people could be offended by my appearance, or other people could feel offended by what I have on my body, or other people could doubt me walking hand in hand with my daughter and being like, oh, who knows if he's really part of her life. That people just think like, oh, he's a gang member, he's probably gonna get her killed or get killed with her, or he's gonna get killed and guess what happens to the daughter, and all that. That's my fear. And I strongly feel that my fears had led me up to be more proactive and more ready, because if I was ready for what the streets had coming my way, I gotta be ready for what my life has in store for me.
Still working on balancing my masculinity and being a positive role model to my family. I'm still a man. It's no excuse for me not to carry myself as a man, but I get upset just like anybody else. One of the things that challenged me to continue to be a father and to stay in it was to stay in it. When I'm challenged with wanting to stay or to go, continue to be in my family, to be a father, I take a moment and think about how I grew up without my father and without my mother. How I felt those late nights in the middle of the night crying, wishing, because the abuse that I had to go through as a young man. Thinking about that, what would happen if I did the same and walked out on my son? And I always made a vow to myself that I was going to always be here for my children. We all may differ in our style on how we raise our children, but we're here. The young father, 21 and older, I see them, they're here. The mid-50s father, we're here. We're coming back. We're on the rise. All you got to do is turn the camera towards us. We'll show you.
Ryan Little.